This is the Louie Tee Network.
Who else could it be? Me, your man, Louie Tee. Welcome to the 2017 NFL Draft Prospects 101 series, your guide to some of the biggest and hottest names of the 2017 NFL Draft. Of course, I'm your set man, Louie Tee, on this roller coaster ride to the 2017 NFL Draft. And we're talking running backs as we're switching positions and going to a position that in past years has been devalued in the NFL Draft. But as you will see in the 2017 NFL Draft, I think we can see that this is going to be a position that makes a huge return. We're talking upwards of four running backs going in the first round, which is unheard of in recent memory. And we're probably going to see three for sure. I think there could be an extra back potentially in the first round, and we'll get to a slew of backs during this series. So buckle your seatbelt because these guys can get the job done at a very high level. There are no Trent Richardsons in this draft in terms of the upper echelon creme de la creme backs. Let's jump into the guy that I think most people, if you're talking running backs in this draft, probably have him as their number one guy. You're looking for a true 25 carries a game back. This is the man for the job. I'm talking about LSU's Leonard Fournette. And we're going to talk about Leonard Fournette, and the first thing we're going to jump into is his pros. You look at Leonard Fournette and his pros, and for me, I get excited. You know how I am, and if you don't know, let me tell you, I get very excited with the upright runners, the big backs. I'm a big back guy. I like my back 6 foot better, 220, 225, 230 pounds. That's my kind of back, okay? Some people like the scat back. Some people like the guy that can catch it out of the backfield. I like the big upright running back. If you can catch it out of the backfield like an Arian Foster and be big, all the better. But for me, I want the guy that can tote the rock 20 to 25 times, 225, 230 pounds, and is about 6 feet, 6'1", 6'2". Those guys, they do something for me. And Leonard Fournette, to me, has the running back holy trinity. I call it the holy trinity. Size, speed, power. You get that in one package, you're talking Adrian Peterson. Not many of those guys come along very often. You don't see them, and generally when you do get that kind of back, he goes usually off the board in the first 10 picks. You're talking about a guy that at 6 feet, 230 pounds. He showed up at the combine at 240. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on, so I'm not a huge fan of that, but this guy at 6 feet, 230 pounds. He's a guy that is a load to bring down. Go put on any tape you like. He's dump trucking guys, running them over. And again, if you want to see me break down his or any other prospect that I do in this series, their film, all you got to do is 1,000 likes, 1,000 views, 100 likes. Make that happen, and we'll sit down and break it down together. But in any event, this is a guy that at 6 feet, 230 pounds is running a 4.5, and on game day, it might be even faster. Okay, that 4.5 that he ran at the combine, the guy was 240 pounds at the combine, and he still ran like a 4.51, 4.52, something like that. This is a guy that I think can run a sub 4.5, and on game days, he's running, to me, sub 4.5. You let him out in the open, good luck trying to catch him from behind. I didn't see many SEC defenders get that job done. So this is a guy, to me, comes with the size at 6 feet, 230, comes with the power. This guy will run anybody over. You bring them, he will lower his shoulder and go forward. Whether you get him on the ground or not, that's another debate that we can have at a different date and time. but this guy is definitely going to have that forward lean. The power is definitely there. And then, of course, I just talked about speed, something you can't teach in a 230-pound, 6-foot frame. You either have it or you don't. This guy definitely has all of those traits and characteristics, which is why I think he has the running back holy trinity, which gets a lot of people excited. You come with that kind of package, you're generally going off the board in the first 10 picks. Contact balance is the next pro. Here's a guy that when you hit him, for that size, normally big guys topple over. When you hit them and you hit them, and let's say you hit them below the waist, because let's face it, a guy that big, you don't want to go up high. Generally, you're asking to get run over when you do that. So generally speaking, the way to get a guy that big down is to cut him from below. And generally, big guys topple down when you do go for their legs. He's one of these guys, actually, I watched a game where he actually leaped in the air, got hit right on one of his thigh pads, bounced off of it and spun in one fluid motion and kept running. Now, again, you don't generally get that out of a back, and this is a guy that will bounce off of contact, that will lower his shoulder, continue to run, that will spin off of a guy and keep moving. He doesn't lose balance very easily. And so I think he has tremendous, for his size, he has tremendous contact balance. More yards after contact. Speaking of which, my next pro, he's a yakster, so you can go ahead and combine the two together. Great contact balance, will take a shot, bounce off of that, keep his feet, continue to drive forward and get more yards. Definitely a guy that after initial contact is getting more and more yardage. I think a lot of his yards at LSU came after initial contact. And so this is a guy that great contact balance, and he's a yakster getting those yards after contact. Underappreciated pass catching ability is my next pro. Now, when you hear that, because a lot of the discussion with Fournette is he a 3-down back? For my money, if you watch the tape, this guy catches the football a lot better than people gave him credit for and are giving him credit for. And if you watched him at the combine, I thought he actually caught the football okay. It wasn't great. He didn't blow anybody away. He didn't look like Christian McCaffrey did. No one did, as a matter of fact, at the combine at the running back position. But if you watch him on tape, they throw him the football, and for the most part, he catches the football. And I don't think that he's a natural, what you would perceive and call a natural pass catching back. But what I do think he brings to the table is the ability to catch the football out of the backfield, which for my money is something that I think we aren't giving him enough credit for, because I think a lot of people question, is he a 3-down back? We'll talk about that a little bit later on. And so I think he can check that box off. I think he can catch the football. I think his ability to do so is underappreciated and undervalued. And I think he's a guy that if you throw him the football, whether it's a swing route out of the backfield or you're asking him to run an arrow route, I think this is a guy that can win those matchups and catch the football and do damage afterwards. He's a workhorse. That's the next pro. Here's a guy that in 2015 had 300 carries for over 1,900 yards and 22 touchdowns, okay? In the SEC, mind you. So this is a guy that, when healthy, you can give the rock to repeatedly over and over and over and over again and ask him to be your rock toter and get the job done, and he will happily oblige. This is a guy that can get it done. And at LSU, where they didn't have a quarterback, and we're going to talk about that in a second, he was the man. Teams knew it, and he still was able to go out and average over 6 yards a carry. So this is a guy, to me, has the ability to come in and day one be a workhorse for your offense if need be. Carolina Panthers. Played in the SEC is the next pro. Look, for my money, there's no conference in college football that trumps the SEC. How many pros defensively do we see come out of that conference every single year? When you're talking about some of the upper echelon athletes on the defensive side of football, the bulk of them are coming out of the SEC. When we're talking trenches in college football, a lot of times we're talking SEC football. He played in the SEC. Let's not sugarcoat it. That means something as you progress to the next level. And finally, he played in a pro-style offense. Let me re-emphasize this final point. With no quarterback, zero, none, okay? His teams in 2014, 2015, and finally in 2016 were very quarterback starved. Their quarterback position was horrendous for his entire career at LSU. If they ever had a competent quarterback while he was there, they probably, first of all, Les Miles never gets fired. That's number one. Probably shouldn't have been fired in the first place. And number two, they probably win a national championship or at least compete to play in one. Okay? They were that good and had enough weapons offensively to do that while he was there. They just never had the trigger man. And so just think about how much harder his job becomes with no quarterback. Knowing that the other team is coming into the game to stop you as the lead guy, as the back. Knowing that they're going to put 8 in the box and challenge you guys and still be able to put up the numbers that this guy put up in his career. The Texas Tech game in 2015, ridiculous. The Ole Miss game where he was not 100% coming off of an injury, over 200 yards, ridiculous game, okay? We're talking about 5 and 4 touchdown games respectively. Knowing that your quarterback isn't up to par, you're still doing that. That's got to speak volumes about what this guy can be at the next level. So playing a pro-style offense, we can't dismiss that because it's not as bad for a running back as it is a quarterback. Really, with running backs, you have some guys that never played in a pro-style offense, have never actually had a real set back at 5 yards, okay? Have never actually had to read off of blocks, never really had to run stretches and try to press a hole and stick their foot in the ground. So sometimes we discount that, but if a guy's never really played in a real pro-style offense, there could be a learning curve for him at the next level. So for Leonard Fournette, not gonna be an issue. Play action fake. He knows how to set at 7, knows how to set at 5, knows how to read blocks, how to press holes, knows how to do all of those things, counter action, all of those things. He did it at LSU, so he'll be fine in any offense that you put him in at the next level. We go from those pros to some of his cons. So we start with his durability. If you're talking Leonard Fournette, the first 26 games of his career from 2014 to 2016, he was fine. Played in every single one of those contests. But in his final 11 games, he missed 5 out of the final 11, which begs the question, can this guy stay healthy when you take the kind of pounding that he took at LSU and you start to question some of his motives? We'll talk about that here in a second. But when you miss 5 out of the final 11 and your team is really dependent upon you, I already talked about the lack of quarterback play at LSU. That's a big question mark moving forward. Is this a guy that you can trust to stay healthy and be able to deliver for you at the next level? We're going to see if someone is intrigued enough to spend a top 10 pick. He's going in the first round, no doubt about it. For my money, he's going to be a top 10 pick. Most likely top 15 for sure. You can book it right now. Will a team spend a top 10 pick on him? Durability is going to be a key question there, as well as the next one. And I have 2 questions coming up next. And I think the next one is a big one. Dedication to the game. Now, if I'm going to spend a top 10 pick on you, you got to love the game of football. There can't be any ifs, ands, or buts about it. There can't be any questions as to whether I can trust you to give me everything you got, to put in the work in the film room, to put in the work in the practice field, and to then go out on the field and give me everything you got. Do you love the game of football, or are you looking for a paycheck? Don't mistake yourself. If you're a fan out there, don't think for 1 second that every football player loves football, because they don't. Just like you don't like your job, just like someone you know doesn't like their job. Football players, some of them look at football as a job. That's it. I go to work, I sit for 6 hours, I look at film, I go on the practice field, and then I go home and enjoy myself. It's work. They don't all love football, okay? When a guy shows up at the most important job interview of his life, He's going to make millions and millions of dollars after this. And he shows up 10 pounds heavy and then tells me it's water weight gain, which it could be. I'm not doubting that. There's a problem. You can't show up. And again, you didn't play in your bowl game because you wanted to prepare for this job interview, and then you show up 10 pounds heavy. I got an issue with that. So does he love the game of football? I don't know Leonard Fournette. And I'm not going to question this man's dedication, heart, or any of that stuff. He may love football, and it may have just been water weight game. Bottom line is, you don't play in the bowl game because you want to prepare, which means there's a little bit of, and again, I'm not beating him up for this. I will never blame a player for doing what he thinks is in the best interest of his future. So don't play in a bowl game. That's totally fine. It's up to you. It's your decision. It's at your discretion. But you quit on your team is what you just did. So there's a question there. Are you out for self or are you a team guy? And do you love the game? Those are all fair questions to ask. I think that at the end of the day, his talents trump any of those concerns. But if you sit down and you feel good enough about who Leonard Fournette is after talking to him, you pull the trigger if you are a general manager with a top 10 pick that matches the need of a back like Leonard Fournette. Is he a 3-down back? That's another question. Now, I told you, I think he can catch the football. I really do. I don't think it's a big issue like some others may, but I think he can catch the football. Is he great in pass protection? I don't think so. Now, that's my $1 million question. I don't think he's great in pass protection. I don't think... I've seen smaller backs give me more effort and be willing to put their body on the line more often than Leonard Fournette. That's a problem for me. So I look at Leonard Fournette and I honestly think he's more of an Adrian Peterson type of back. A guy that you want him on the field on first and second down, but if you've seen Adrian Peterson for the duration of his career in Minnesota, they would take him off the field on third down. They were never really comfortable with him being on the field on third downs, and that's fine. When a guy is going to tote the rock 20 to 25 to 30 times in the game anyway, he doesn't need to be on the field on third downs necessarily. So if you're a team out there with a nice change of pace back, they can come in, catch it, do a little bit of pass pro out of the backfield and spell this guy all the while, I'm all for it. But just know what you're getting. You're not getting a guy that I think is going to be on the field all 3 downs, and that's perfectly fine by me. Still willing to spend a top 10 pick on Mr. Fournette, if you ask me. And finally, this is a little bit of a nitpicky con for me, but it's nonetheless a con. He can be bounce happy sometimes. And if you watch the games where he struggled, especially against Alabama, where they would clog the middle up. You go back to the 2015 game where they just stymied him, when they had Ashawn Robinson and all of those guys inside, Jaron Reed. He tried to bounce a lot of things outside and there was nothing there. Sometimes you just got to put your head down and get what you can get. There were opportunities to get 2 or 3, and instead he would bounce off a guy and then try to go to the outside, or he would bounce it outside, take a hard step inside and bounce it back outside, and the pursuit would come, safety would come down and chop his legs from under him, 3-yard loss. Corner would come up, set a physical edge, next thing you know, safety coming to clean up, 2-yard loss. When sometimes you just gotta stick your head in there and say, you know what, you guys won this time, because my defensive or my tackle is 2 yards in the backfield, so I can't get to the outside. This play's blown up. Put your head down, get what you can get. And sometimes he can be a little bounce happy because, let's face it, when the guy gets outside, there aren't many corners, safeties that want any part of Leonard Fournette, and he knows that. So he knows if I can just get to the second level, I'm going to win. So sometimes he'll get a little bounce happy, but I'm nitpicking, man. This guy, to me, has the ability to change the game from a position that has been devalued over the last decade. You don't see many running backs impact the game as often as they used to, but this is a guy that I think you can get in the first round of this draft, and he can come in and right away change the fortunes of your team's offense. With or without a great quarterback, you have a good enough offensive line that can open up holes. This is a guy that can change the game for you in Leonard Fournette at the running back position. That's his draft prospects 101 breakdown. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie Tee Network. I got more breakdowns for you guys. Come on back and join me. I'll see you next time. Whether you're looking for more great content or more of me, your man, Louie Tee. Follow, like, and subscribe to the following social media platforms of mine.